Hey everyone, I'm Graf, and I'm here today bringing you another episode of the Untrained Ear, where today we are going to get into Owls, Omens, and Oracles, an LP released by Valerie June. So, as a kind of overview, Owls, Omens, and Oracles is Valerie June's sixth feature LP, and actually my personal introduction to the artist. About halfway through my first listen, I was spontaneously prompted to go and actually dive into some of her live performances, and I gotta say, I was immediately enamored with her stage presence and her kind of old timesy demeanor. Valerie is a masterclass act when it comes to injecting her soulful aesthetic into various genres of music, though she does tend to favor kind of the indie folk and jazz genres specifically. If you find yourself interested, please buckle in because this project introduces a breadth of different genres into the mix, whether it's folk, bluegrass, R&B, country, jazz, rock, indie, or even ballad music. Nothing is seemingly out of bounds for Valerie on this particular project. So, getting into some of the track highlights, for me there were four tracks that kind of really stood forward amidst the others, while I really liked a lot of what this album had to offer. These four kind of stood to the front for me. All I really want to do is truly what I would consider to be the spiritual title track of the album. It takes this bluesy jazz vibe and it injects it with this soulful feel that Valerie does with truly most of the tracks on the album, and it does it in, I think, the best way to showcase this kind of like soul injection that she does with all the different genres on this project. The product is really this wonderful marriage of genres that takes you back to this like 70s 80s soul pop anthemic style that sounds kind of like it's best served on a record player in the most like wonderful, like nostalgic kind of way. And kind of in that same vein, you have Love Me Any Old Way, which is my favorite track on the album. I've never personally been to like the streets of Louisiana, but I almost felt like I was kind of there with this very brass led track. Jazz kind of takes the front stage here, and I honestly would have to say I would be damned if the sliding piano keys, the swinging sax, the soaring trumpets didn't have me pumping my leg within seconds. This was an instant classic, in my opinion, that felt like it had been kind of on her performance rotation for years. So much so to the fact that I was actually kind of prompted to check it out. And it turns out I was right. And there's a bit of evidence of this track being a feature for Valerie as far back as 2017 in the kind of brief research that I conducted. In a kind of change of pace, you had Superpower, which was this very potent mix-up for the album. I felt like this track takes this lo-fi hip-hop kind of sidebar that's really resonating well, I think, in the album. I got this really like old-school Sublime sound from it, and I think Valerie really showcases here some potential to contribute something a little more postmodern and experimental in her sound. I could dig into more of her projects, but I'd really love to see more of that from her. I really felt like this track wasn't out of place either, which was a feat in and of itself, considering that the tone of virtually the rest of the album is a little more dialed back in time. So I was pretty impressed with it. And another track that was kind of different was Calling My Spirit. This one I felt like was a true exhale on the back third of the album. And it really takes this excellent moment to set the pace and allow Valerie's vocal strength to carry the weight of the song. The acapella really truly feels spiritual with all the harmonizing that she does with herself and the ambient sounds of the nature that is present in the mix, like just kind of barely in the background. Really connected with me, and the vibe of the song was really awesome and just had this, I think, perfect ambiance about it that just lets you like exhale and get ready for the last little leg of the album. So those were kind of the major track highlights in my mind. So getting into like a small bit of criticism, Valerie June's passion for music is pure and very clearly evident, and while that lends her towards what I believe to be a truly authentic performance style that's especially impactful live, It did somewhat depreciate from the quality of recording on this particular project. Often the mixing could tend to suffer for some of the instrumentation, despite it being quite vibrant throughout many of the tracks. Um, it can kind of depreciate from the full picture of certain songs. Some elements are kind of drowned out by others in moments where they shouldn't be. Some of my favorite tracks, like Love Me Any Old Way, suffer from this, though not to the extent where they're completely ruined. There are moments where certain pieces of instrumentation are kind of lost in the mix, and I felt like it could have been done in a way where all of the pieces that she worked so hard to orchestrate could have been celebrated together in a more cohesive manner. Another gripe, it was only moments in the album where I felt like some of the writing was a little lackluster. Valerie kind of tended to lean towards repetitive bridges or choruses, and while I respect that this could be a piece of genre stylism, I think that her writing has been showcased to be a little stronger at other parts of the album, and that she could have probably leaned into that a little better, rather than, kind of hammering in on repetitive bridges and repetitive choruses in multiple tracks. Maybe do that on one or two in order to get across and hammer in some of these points that she's making on some of these songs. I think it just would have pushed this album maybe a tier higher. It's a small gripe, and it's only because she just has so much obvious potential that I just feel like there could have been a little more there. Small gripes, both of them, truly. Owls, Omens, and Oracles is a hard album to label, in so much as Valerie June is a hard artist to label. One thing that's immediately visible about her is her passion for music is palpable. Her old-timey blues breathes the right amount of zest into a myriad of genres to pump this awesome wave of nostalgia into the listener that just kind of imbues them with this wonderfully misplaced sense of deja vu. I can't really explain it other than a confidence that I was not alone in it. And combing through the comments of several performances, I found many listeners commenting things like, this song really reminds me of a time that never happened. Things like that. While far from a perfect record, I think this LP shows a lot of promise and potential. And that's why I'm giving this a baseless rating of a soulful 7.